Hey everyone, Supercell Celeste here. Today's Sunday, February 4th, and today I want to talk about the colder weather pattern that's expected to start for much of North America starting around the middle of February, or basically by next week. Not this week, but next week. So we're going to start here by looking at the GEFS model, which is basically the GFS model, but its 31 ensemble members are averaged out. So you just get an average of what all the ensemble members are saying. And so looking at the GEFS, we're looking at the 500 millibar height anomalies. Reds are ridges and blues, purples are troughs. And this is right now, today, you can see very, like, extremely strong ridge over the Hudson Bay in southern Canada, with a trough over Texas and the Gulf Coast, another one off the west coast of the United States, and another one off the east coast of the United States. Now, one thing in particular to keep note on is we have a trough over northwestern Canada and another one over Greenland and Iceland. That's one reason why we've been getting such warmer weather into southern Canada and the northern eastern United States. Usually when there's a trough over Greenland and Alaska, you get a ridge between and you get warmer weather across much of Canada, southern Canada, and the eastern half of the United States. And that's exactly what we saw for the past few weeks. Now, as we go out into the future here, you'll see how those troughs break down and how the weather pattern does a complete turnaround potentially. So this is going into tomorrow and even just a few days from now. By Wednesday, you can see over Greenland, it's suddenly now we're getting ridging over Greenland, and even over Alaska, even ridging developing there. Now, at the same time, we get a deep trough digging into the western United States, while a large ridge still over the east, which is why the eastern half of the U.S. and Canada are still going to be very warm and dry and snowless this week. Going out even more, going until all the way to next weekend. It's about next Saturday. You can see the GEFS still tries to bring a trough, still lingering over Greenland and slight ridging over Alaska. But notice how the ridge over the eastern half of the U.S. is starting to weaken, and we're getting troughiness over the central and western U.S. moving from the west coast towards the middle of the U.S. While at the same time we're still seeing fairly strong ridging over Canada. And then, but the big show happens potentially the following week, as we get towards around February, between the 10th and the 15th. Notice how this is valid. This would be the February 13th. Notice how much of the U.S. is suddenly showing troughiness now, and with the ridge building over the far western Canada into Alaska. And also, we're still seeing slight troughiness over Greenland. This will set the stage for a potential pattern change, more colder, more snowier, potentially across much of the U.S. And then as we go out further in time, let's go to February 15th, because by this time, notice how the GEFS is showing a large ridge developing now over Greenland and another larger ridge developing over Western Canada and Alaska. Now this would be the opposite of what is happening right now. And notice how when you have a ridge over Alaska and Greenland, then you can easily get troughiness over the eastern halves of the United States and eastern Canada. This would set the stage for a more colder, snowier weather pattern. I'm not expecting it to be as brutally cold as what we saw last month, but still bringing temperatures down to average and even below average, and bringing definitely more potential for snow than what we've been seeing for the past few weeks, which has almost been absent for much of the eastern half of the U.S. And then just letting the whole model run play out, the GEFS is showing even a very strong ridge potentially This is still pretty far out, but the model is showing very strong ridging over Greenland, which is causing a very large trough over the northeastern United States, and still troughing us across much of the south and much of the Great Lakes region, with some ridging hanging on across western Canada and into parts of the Great Plains states. And then I want to show you guys what the European model is saying, or excuse me, the EPS, which is the European model, and its ensemble runs all averaged out. Let's zoom in on the United States mostly more. You can see this is right now. You can see extremely strong ridge right now over the Hudson Bay. It's even going over the excuse me, the legend only goes to plus 40, and it's going beyond that, which is crazy strong ridge over the Hudson Bay right now. It even looks like an omega block at the moment, where you have a ridge in the middle followed by a trough on either end of it. Well, anyway, going out into the future, the EPS also showing the same general idea. Let's go out to next weekend. Here's February 10th. You can see the ridge slowly breaking down across the East Coast, while troughiness is developing across much of the West and Central United States. And then as we go out further, the EPS also showing that trough digging into the east by the 13th, 14th. Here's the large trough across the East Coast. Troughiness in general across much of the east, bringing colder, snowier weather, while a ridge builds across the western United States. And going out further in time, excuse me, let's go back to about the 18th, somewhere around the 17th or 18th of February. The EPS also showing that the Northeast has the highest chance of seeing the strongest troughiness going on, while much of the East more in a trough pattern, bringing more colder and snowier weather, especially after around the 13th or 15th of February, while ridging builds across the Northwest and into the Great Plains states. And then so I want to show you guys what the forecast temperature anomalies are. We'll stay at the EPS model. So these are temperature anomalies, how far above and below the average we are in terms of temperature. So for example, let's go to this afternoon. You can see the EPS is showing forecasts of over 30 to even 40 degrees above average. These are in Fahrenheit. 30 to 40 degrees above average across northern Ontario, eastern Manitoba. That's just crazy amounts. We've been seeing crazy amounts of record high temperatures across much of this area here over the past couple of weeks. And then you could also see some below average temperatures today across the Southwest and portions of the southeastern United States. Going out into the future, you can see this week lots of above average temperatures still across the northern half of the U.S. into southern Canada. And we're talking temperatures even 20 degrees above average. So this week is still very warm for a lot of this area. While the West, you can see, West is in the blue a bit, below average temperatures out there this week with that troughiness going on. And then as we go into next week, here's next Monday forecast, Monday, February 12th. Still a lot of above average temperatures across much of the northern U.S., southern Canada, with the more below average temperatures across the south and southwest, where that troughiness is going on. And then, but by the time we get to the 14th and 15th, look what happens. The EPS is showing temperatures below average across much of the south, into all of the East Coast, and into much of southeastern Canada, and it keeps more above average temperatures across western Canada into the upper Midwest, which is almost complete opposite of what's happening now. This area is still warm up here in western Canada. We'll see if they actually cool down a lot by the middle of the month. And then going all the way out past the 15th, you can see below average temperatures still forecasted across the south, all of the east coast, all the way into Quebec, Ontario, Manitoba, while the northwest, southwestern Canada, and parts of the Great Plains states potentially still stay above average. Cooler than they are now, but still above average. And then all the way out to the end of the run by the 19th, still showing widespread below average temperatures possible across all of the east, all of the eastern U.S., southern U.S., even into Mexico, much of southeastern Canada, with more above average temperatures across southwestern Canada, the Pacific Northwest, and into the Great Plains states. Now, next I want to show you guys the forecast snowfall amounts. I'm going to go to the probability of getting 1 inch of snow in a 24-hour period. This is for today. You could see snow going on across the west. That's why we have these very high probabilities of getting 1 inch of snow today. But as we watch what happens as we go out in time, you can see the west has the highest probability of getting 1 inch of snow because of they're under that trough right now. And we could see a little bit of a snowstorm develop across Montana and move into Saskatchewan and Manitoba, Canada. That's why you're seeing the high probabilities there this would be February 8th and 9th. But as we go into next week, this would be the week of the 12th, notice how we're starting to get higher probabilities of snow across the Midwest and especially into the Northeast and Great Lakes region. So chances of snow going up by that point with that trough digging in. And then all the way till the 15th, you can see probabilities of 1 inch of snow are still maintaining over the Great Lakes region and the Northeast especially. And even to some extent across the Great Plains states and the Rocky Mountains. This area still stays under a bit of a ridge, I think, and the core of the trough stays over the east. That's why we're seeing the higher probabilities out east and less over the upper Midwest. Not so much across the upper Midwest region because they have a little bit of ridging that's going to stick around for longer, like I was showing. And then going all the way out, you can see just higher probabilities stay across the Great Lakes region. Most probably the EPS is forecasting lake effect snow a lot of lake effect snow potentially, and also into northern New England in this area, potentially getting highest chances of snow. And then, like I said, the snow belts of the Great Lakes have the highest chance of snow, and a lot into southeastern Canada too. So I do expect them, obviously, by around after the 10th to 15th, a more snowier pattern and colder pattern to develop. As that pattern does change, here I'll pull up a blank map to kind of show you guys what I'm talking about. Let's go to this. So sometime around February 10th to the 15th, let's say after February 13th. After February 13th, as that weather pattern does change from warmer to colder, I do expect there should be some storm system that ushers in that colder air somewhere in this region. Somewhere in that region, there will be a storm system that moves through. That'll bring rain, snow, wind. I'm not expecting a major storm like we saw last month, but definitely big enough to cause someone will get accumulating snow out of this, specifically on the northern half, somewhere in here. And then after that, I do expect a more colder pattern to develop across much of the south, the Gulf Coast, into the East Coast and Great Lakes region. I expect this area to be colder, and while I do expect ridging to maintain across the Pacific Northwest and the upper Midwest region, where it'll still be kind of warmer. Colder than it is now, especially across the Dakotas and Montana, but still I don't think it'll be too far below average. Maybe even not get many days below average by the middle to end of the month. And then in terms of snow, I'm not expecting so far I'm not expecting a major snowy pattern for the second half of February. But obviously this whole area from the Great Lakes region across the East Coast, this area will probably have the highest chance of seeing snow for the second half of February, and especially across the snow belts of the Great Lakes region and across northern New England. I expect these areas to have the highest chances of snow for the second half of February. And I guess that's all for today. Short video today, just talking about the colder pattern developing. So I hope you guys have a great day, everyone. Goodbye.